Last week, we spoke about how language can affect our choices and our behaviours. So essentially, if you're using words, if we look at the concept of language, what we can do is use words to break down your own habits, to improve your actions around food or your thoughts around body image. So if you consider food as clean and junk, healthy and naughty, but start to then make a conscious decision to view food as literally just food and simply remove the concepts and terminologies like good and bad and naughty and junk, what you're doing is able to produce different feelings that challenge your old habits and thoughts. So you're changing your current vocabulary and assemblages in your mind to create basically questions or considerations around your behaviours. Because what you're doing here is you're juggling or you're thinking about your wording differently to how you have been for the last, whatever it is, 25, 30 years. Because if you've grown up with that concept of good and bad, or restrict during the week, you've created habit loops and negative associations with food. So bringing in food linguistics and trying to change how you speak about food and what you see and read about food is really important, because it can literally change your entire behaviours and habits around it. So one of our major focuses is ensuring that there's a variety and balance on a daily basis to help reduce the feelings of restriction, right? So we have a really strong shift on removing the word cheat meal and cheat day from vocabulary, because for us, the words cheat day creates an association that you've done something wrong, or that you're eating something wrong, or something naughty in comparison to other days of the week. So the fact is, with binge eating disorder, you want to be able to eat balanced. You want to eat delicious things and less nutrient-dense things any day of the week without feeling like you're restricting yourself, or without feeling like you have to go overboard on the weekend. Or particularly if you're at celebrations or hang on vacations and stuff like that. So when foods, are unique to a table setting, and you've said all week, no, it's much easier to then be like, oh my God, yes, when it's presented.
And that ties into that all or nothing mindset we spoke about earlier.
Exactly. So if you create a balance with nutrient-dense and less nutrient-dense food on a daily basis, the feeling of restriction actually dissipates. So this in turn just reduces the urge to binge or overeat.
So you're allowing yourself to have less nutrient-dense foods every now and again. And this, I think that's a great point. I think that's a great tactic, is like, most people are on this perpetual fucking hamster wheel where they eat really clean, they're restricting throughout the week, they're dialed in with their sleep, their nutrition, their training, etc., and then come the weekend, they're like, sweet, I can let myself go a little bit now, and they let their hair down and, go from eating whatever, 1,500 calories every day throughout the week to fucking banging out 3,000 calories both days, Saturday, Sunday, and that's that. Yeah, it's that all or nothing mindset, that restrict binge. Whereas, if you can give people the tools and say, hey, you know what, like, if you are focusing on calories and macronutrients, then cool. Like, we can take elements of, like, if it fits your macros and go, hey, you know what, like, you've moved a little bit more on a Wednesday, you've trained a little bit harder, you've had good sleep, you've had, 4 or 5 more nutrient-dense meals in a row. We can use that 80-20 rule. Now you can give yourself a little bit of flexibility and go, you know what, you can have something a little bit less nutrient dense, okay, and then you're kind of planning for it, right, and you're putting that into your week rather than kind of getting that urge and then acting upon it and then feeling like shit and then creating that cycle again. You're going, you know what, I can have this, okay, I'm going to put some rules and regulations around that, and then you're adding that into your day, knowing that, you know what, I've done the right thing the majority of the time. I'm going to allow myself to be a little bit flexible here. And then, cool, I've satisfied that. Now I'm going to make better decisions more often than not. And you're setting up those wins. You're creating achievements.
Yeah, exactly. That exactly spot on. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be able to relate to exactly what you just said, because that is one of the most common things that we see at Macros Muscle Mindset. And, we work with a lot of ex-athletes, and it's a very similar concept where it's like, we trained 6 days of the week, and then our 7th day was like, we were absolutely shattered. so all we did was eat all day as part of recovery. But then when we went to training on Monday, I couldn't hit the lacrosse ball because I had a sugar fog, right?
Yeah.
Literal stories. Like, this is
Inflammation's up, you're feeling foggy, you're feeling lethargic.
Parched, etc., etc. So, yeah, that concept of all of nothing, it all ties back to it. So the next thing, I guess, with linguistics is being mindful of what you read, when you read it, what you listen to, and what you see. So, you know, I know you're big on this too, particularly around social media, but, you know, even when you read the news, it can have an impact on how your day sets up, right? Because if you're constantly reading negative things, if you're looking at Instagram and you're seeing the next detox, the next fast, the next 6 weeks challenge, guess what? You're waking up, that's the first thing that you see. That's getting indoctrinated into your head. Like, you know, social media drives me nuts.
And then to add to that point, you know, I don't use my phone for the first couple of hours of the day. Like, I don't set a time for when I'm going to use my phone, right? Like, I get up in the morning, I write out my schedule. I'm like, right, I'm going to do this. Once I've done those things, then I can use my phone. But then I'm using it with intent, right? And like, for me, the reason I started doing that was because, you know, as you said before, like, you start implementing these small changes. And like, many years ago, I read the book The One Thing, and it's like, what's the one thing that you can do that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary? And I was like, I want to do this. And that was like, I was building my website at the time, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get up a little bit earlier. All right, what's the one thing that I can do that's going to allow me to get up a little bit earlier? Well, I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier. Okay, what's the one thing I can do that's going to help me get blah, 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 blah. All right, I'm going to turn my phone off at this time. And that ended up being the one thing, right? And it's like, and for me, that, exactly, habit stacking, right? And it was a process. It took a little bit of time. It took a few months it took a little bit of time to figure that out. But then it was like, you know, all right, I'm going to turn my phone off 20 minutes before I go to bed. And then it was 40 minutes before I go to bed. And then it's an hour before I go to bed. And like, that's stuck. And I notice when I don't do that, you know, there's a couple of weeks ago where I was kind of letting myself slip a little bit, but I had backstops. I was like, all right, my sleep patterns are a little bit worse than what they have been, and I can feel that creeping into my day. And I was looking at my again, the data, and I was seeing what was going on. I was seeing those patterns, I was seeing those trends, and I was like, all right, well, I've stopped doing this, and then this has flowed over into this, and this has flowed over into this. Now I need to start doing that again, you know. So I think that's a great point. Is like, you know, we want to be starting the day on the front foot, being proactive rather than being reactive.
And you know, this leads exactly into the next thing that I want to talk about in linguistics. Is part of what we get our clients to do is habit stack with creating a daily intention. You know, as one of the first things that they do. So we call it the Mindset for Success tool. So basically, it's using the right language for the day ahead. The Mindset for Success tool is a tool that can help you keep on track for, you know, particularly if you know have disordered eating habits, is, you know, things where you can feel anxious around food. So big events, vacations, things like weddings, etc. We kind of started this tool on those days. You know, we habit stack it from that to then maybe once a week to then maybe 3 times a week to then, you know, every day. But it's about installing and learning that intention can create good habits for the day and then for the future. So, for example, waking up and writing down success at the end of the day would look like it's going to help you reinstate what you were thinking about achieving for the day. So again, we go day by day. We're not looking far ahead. We're not saying success would look like in 6 months being binge eating disorder free. No, we're saying success at the end of the day is enjoying mum's cooking and having one cookie and going to bed, you know. Or it might be success would be having alcohol this evening and not having dessert. So, you know, it differs for people, it differs on their days. So that's why it's like, okay, let's habit stack this. Let's put it in for the days that you know are harder for you, which might be Friday, Saturdays. And then, hey, let me know what it is. I'll check in with you at the end of the day. Let's see how you go. Did you stick to your intention? And more often than not, it's yes. And then we build on that, we grow on that, and we try and make it a daily habit. And again, it's a habit stack. It takes time. But it's like, okay, let's pull off the phone first thing in the morning and let's set ourselves up with intention. Let's put our goals out and let's try and be that 1% better than yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, and a big point I want to make here is you need to make it achievable, right? It needs to be like just a little bit challenging, but also, like, you know, if you wake up with intention, it also needs to be achievable so that you can, you know, go to the calendar and put a mark on the calendar. I've won today. I've won today. I've won today. And that's it. That's all we need to do, is we need to stack win upon win upon win upon win. So we need to find tools that are going to allow us to do that, because if you do the right thing, in quotation marks, or you stack these wins upon wins, and you do that more than you know, fall to these cravings, then that's a good day. You've just won the day. If you can do that over the week, you've now won the week. You do that over the month, you've now won the month. And then you've won the year, so on and so forth. I've got a number of coaches that I've got on board as online coaching clients, as somewhat of a mentorship. And one of my mates is on board at the moment. I'm training him for a jiu-jitsu tournament. But, you know, I was talking to him about his online coaching business, and he was saying that one of his clients he was looking at her food diary, and her food diary was like, I had McDonald's 4 times this week, and she was happy with that. And when he got onto a call with her, he's like, oh, talk to me about this. And she goes, you know what, like, normally I eat McDonald's 10 times a week. Wow. And I only had it 4 times this week. Yeah. And he's like, that's fucking awesome. That's a win. Like, he's not completely cutting it out. She's not cutting it out. She's not, like, restricting. It's just like, hey, I'm going to improve upon this. And that's what people need to think about, is like, we're working towards progress, not perfection.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, you know, the process of recovery, like I said at the beginning, it's not linear. So it's like, there are going to be setbacks, and there are going to be times where you give in to that urge. But using the tools that we focus on,
and that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
That's okay as long as you're aware of it, and you've got those backstops, and you can go, all right, cool. How long am I going to let this go on for? Because that's the thing, is like, you know, once you create momentum in either direction, that momentum just keeps snowballing. So, you know, if you fall victim to, you know, one of these cravings, and then you allow that to define you, you have this all or nothing mindset, then it's much easier to make another poorer decision, and another poorer decision, another poorer decision. And like, the further you veer off that track, the more difficult it is to get back onto that track and start creating these positive habits that are moving you in the right direction.
And particularly with binge eating disorder, if you're in a state where it's severe to extreme, the concept of recovery, and like, you fall back a lot. And, you know, that complication of self-sabotage, and, you know, what you're self-talking to yourself, can be really, really hard to overcome. So at one point I was suicidal, because I was like, I can't live this way anymore. And that was the breaking point for me. That's when I was like, I need help, because I will drive off the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Like, that's where I was at. So, you know, that was the extreme point. Like, that's when I was like, what the hell is this? And I then sought a Neuro-Linguistic practitioner. But it's like, we don't want people to get to that point. This is why we're doing this podcast. It's like, let's try and get the education out there now about what it actually is, and how you can try and improve on it in these beginning steps. And then, hey, if these tools and techniques don't work, let's then look at getting some professional, you know, help, therapy. So, you know, as I said, yeah, it's not linear, but people need to just know that you've got to keep going, because these issues, eating disorders, are curable, which is great, which is an amazing thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about understanding that, you know, you're on a path. It's a journey. And like you said, sometimes you are going to veer off that track, right? Like, most people go, I need to go from A to Z, and they think they just go in a fucking straight line. Like, it never happens.
Absolutely
like that.
Not.
Yeah,
I've never gone in a straight line.
Yeah,
my plan B's are usually better than plan A.
And that's the point that I'm making, is like, you know, if we want to go from point A to point Z, like, we need to understand there's not a linear process, and we're going to be walking that. Hey, this is where I am right now. That's where I need to be over there. I just need to start moving in that direction. The tools that I use are going to be different, right? And I need to, as you said, trial and error. We need to figure out these tools that are going to work for us. And maybe that means, you know, being aware of how you talk to yourself. That might be the first thing. Maybe it's, putting the scale away. Maybe it's reducing how many times you're eating McDonald's a week, or whatever it might be. Like, all these tools are going to be different, but you need to find the tool. You need to come up with the tool and set that goal, put some rules and regulations around what you're doing, okay, and then go, you know what, I've done the right thing, I've done what I know is right, and I've started building discipline. That's an important thing, right? Is like building discipline, because if you give in to all of your cravings all the time, that is the path of least resistance, right? That gets easier and easier and easier to fall into that pattern again. So we need to start building discipline around, giving these parameters that we need to work within. And it's creating those rules and regulations that you can achieve. So you're setting yourself up for win after win after win, and as long as you do that the majority of the time, then you're on the right path. There is going to be times when things are going really well. Sweet, keep moving in that direction, tweak, refine, adjust. But then there's going to be times when life gets in the way, and you're fucking stressed out, you're under the pump at work, your relationship's falling apart, you've got financial issues, whatever, right? Those are the times where you go, all right, cool, these are my non-negotiables. I need to be aware of where I'm at. I need to be aware of some of these habits that are starting to creep back in, some of these potentially bad habits that are creeping back in, and some of the good habits that I've started building, they're starting to move back out of my routine, right? And then we've got these backstops that go, all right, when I get to this point, I know that I'm going too far, right? And the more I allow myself to continue down that path, the further off track I'm going to go, the harder it's going to be to get back on track, the longer it's going to take.
Yeah.